Taps may run dry in this country where the water crisis is so severe it can be seen from space. That's Iran today. Look at the length of that dam, totally dry. There are fears water may run out completely in this vast, bustling city whose metropolitan area is home to around 15 million people. In a speech earlier this month, President Masoud Shekian said water will be rationed if it does not rain in Tehran by December. If the lack of rain continues, residents have to evacuate, he said. Around 20 provinces haven't seen a single drop of rain since the start of the rainy season at the end of September. Tehran has 15 million people, and it hasn't rained since September. The protest erupted Sunday and gathered pace Monday after the Islamic Republic's currency, the rial, hit a record low against the dollar. The embattled head of the central bank, Mohammad Reza Varsan, resigned Monday. The Iranian rial crashed to a 1.42 million to the dollar on Sunday and was being traded for 1.38 million to the dollar on Monday. The dramatic drop in the value of the currency has led to families struggling to make ends meet as the value of their savings has plunged. According to the State Statistics Center, the inflation rate in December rose to 42.2% from the same period last year and is 1.8 higher than in November. Food prices rose to 72% and health and medical items were up 50% from December of last year. And this is NBC News. You can see it at the top. Okay? Now, friends, and this is December 30th. This is 11 days ago. Friends, Trump is fighting to bring inflation down from 3 or 4 points. These people have inflation of 42%. Food prices have gone up 72%. $1 will buy you 1.42 million rials. How can they make it? When you run out of water, when you run out of food because you can't afford it, when medical prices go up 50%, when inflation goes up to 42%, friends, people that don't have any guns, because all of Europe, all of Iran, all of Venezuela, all of Cuba, these people, all they have to fight is broomsticks. They don't have a Second Amendment like we have. They are so desperate that this is why you're seeing what you're seeing in the news. But this is not what we're thinking is going to happen with Iran. We're going to cover that in a minute. This is not what we're thinking. Iran is one of the main players in the battle between the ram and the he-goat. It is the main player, okay, in Daniel 8. In the battle, we have a ram with 2 horns. In verse 3, Daniel saw that the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. In verse 19, Gabriel says to Daniel, the battle takes place at the very end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. In verse 20, after the battle is described in verses 1 through 13, after the judgment commences in verse 14, in verse 20, the angel tells Daniel, the ram with 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Since the battle takes place at the last end of the indignation, we have to say, well, who is Persia? Everybody knows that Persia is the old name for Iran. Who is Media? Media is made up of parts of Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and Kurdistan. There were 2 horns. One was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I thought for sure this battle was going to be fulfilled in 2003, when after 4 presidents, Saddam Hussein was destroyed. But Daniel 8 says both horns had to be destroyed. The higher horn comes up last. Iran is the higher horn. It is 3.6 times larger than Iraq and Syria combined. This is This is how people are going to understand these things. Ellen White said, put those books in a little booklet, Daniel and Revelation, but you don't need much explanation. People will see it. Friends, after this presentation, you're going to see why people are going to see this. I've never seen it like I'm seeing it now. You're going to see it. In verse 4, Daniel saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward. His back was to the east. And he did whatever he wanted to, and nobody could deal with him. This is exactly what happened with Saddam Hussein. He went through Ronald Reagan, George Bush Sr., Clinton, and George W. Bush finally took care of him in 2003. In verse 5, and again I'm giving you this ahead so that I can hopefully get you to read the part that explains all these prophecies. In verse 5, Daniel sees a he-goat which came from the west. What is the west? America. It came from the west and touched not the ground. This denotes an aerial war. Okay? And he hits the ram and breaks his two horns. 2003 only broke one, so that was not the final fulfillment of that prophecy. The he-goat had a notable horn between his eyes. In my opinion, and we will see it based on what has transpired so far, the he-goat is the United Nations. The force behind the United Nations is the United States. That is the notable horn. In verses 6 and 7, the he-goat runs into the ram with fury and choler. Those are the two words that the King James Version uses. Why fury and choler? Because Iran is going to do something so horrific that the whole world is going to say, okay, we've got to deal with Iran now. We're not there yet. You see that people are thinking, oh, Trump is going to take out Iran like he did Venezuela. No, cannot happen. Not based on Daniel 8. That's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Iran is going to do something so horrific that the whole world is going to say, we agree that we got to take out Iran. Now, today in the news, the leader of the United Nations said, what Iran is doing with the people, taking away the internet, the whole country has been dark for 60 hours. That's unconscionable. So it's beginning to happen, but I don't think that is what's going to take for the he-goat, the United States with the United Nations behind it, to do an aerial war, which is exactly what happened with Saddam Hussein. Remember all those, we bombarded them in 1991, 1997, and it wasn't until 2003 that we took them out. And they were all aerial wars. Now it's going to happen worse. Okay? Please take time to study this prophecy. It applies to us. Ayatollah Khomeini, remember him? If you're not over 60, you don't remember him. Ayatollah Khomeini ruled for 10 years until 1989. In 1989, Ayatollah Khamenei, the one that's there now, has ruled for 35 years. The goal of both of these leaders is to destroy Israel and America. Khamenei is now 86 years old. He sees that the whole country is now against him. He sees that he has to flee the country. But this is not Venezuela. This is not going to be Khamenei fleeing the country. What would you do if your whole life you've dedicated to the destruction of Israel and the Satan of America, and all of a sudden now you realize that the whole world, the whole country is against you? I believe he's going to pull the trigger, a nuclear trigger, and he's going to cause damage, either probably to Israel, maybe to the United States, not here, but remember the United States has bases all around the Middle East, and maybe to his people. He may start killing. As of today, I think there were something like 500 people that have been killed in these protests that have been going on now, I think for 2 weeks. Friends, this is getting ready to happen. I have been preaching on this prophecy since 1989. Nobody has paid attention, but now this is happening. And Matthew 24 says, wars and rumors of wars. In my opinion, Iran is about to do something so horrific that the United Nations, led by the United States, a coalition of countries in the United Nations, maybe not all of them, in 2003, it wasn't all of them, it was just a few, are going to go and break the two horns. Remember that Iran has been a thorn in the flesh of the world for 46 years, since 1979, when they took hostage 50 Americans for 444 days. Iran has been funding Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, and Iraq. As I shared with you in my 9-part series, I believe this battle commenced when Israel, for the first time, at the time appointed of Daniel 8:19, declared war on Hamas in 2023, on the Day of Atonement in 2023, at time appointed. In that series, I shared with you that this battle will continue to escalate, and it will bring into the battle the United States, England, Russia, China, the European community, and the papacy, which is part of the European community, is the little horn in the European community. The present situation in Iran should wake up Seventh-day Adventists and make us realize that this prophecy is about to be fulfilled and that the end is near. And we have no clue. Why? Because the battle already took place in 331 BC, friends. It's amazing to me how we don't see this. Friends, please follow me in this simple exercise to show you what could happen in 2026. And I can tell you right now, there are some that are going to say, oh, Lumunilla is setting dates. Friends, I am not setting dates. I am studying prophecy, which is more than most pastors are doing because they don't want to be labeled a time setter. They don't want to be censored from speaking in the church, as it has happened to me and many others. Proverbs 11:14 says, there is wisdom in the multitude of counselors. Why are we prohibited from studying prophecy? Because that's what we are. Pastors are not allowed to voice their opinion that would disagree with what we hold as a church. But yet we have not had anything new since 1844, not one ray of light. In Evangelism 199, Mrs. White says, a storm is coming, relentless in its fury. Friends, I believe it's here. My duty, your duty as a Christian, is to blow the trumpet, is to study so you can warn the world and warn others in the church. I am sharing this with you. Your duty is to refute it. And if you cannot refute it from Scripture or the spirit of prophecy, then your duty is to change your ways and prepare to meet your God, because that's where we're headed. This could happen in 2026. In India, China, Russia, and the cities of America, thousands of men and women are dying of starvation. The moneyed men, because they have the power, control the market. They purchase at low rates all they can obtain and then sell at greatly increased prices. This means that starvation to the poorer classes and will result in a civil war. There will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. Manuscript 114, 1899. Manuscript Releases, Volume 5, pages 305 and 306. Friends, the world is talking about a civil war. Look at England. Look at France. Look at all these other countries that are having the same problem. Look at Venezuela. Look at Cuba. Cuba will fall at any moment. Why? Because they get all their oil from Venezuela. Venezuela is gone. If Iran is taken out of the way, Russia has no way to buy oil. And China has no way to buy oil. This is complicated. Civil war, it's getting ready to happen in India, China, Russia, and the cities of America. Not all of America. Minneapolis is one of those cities. Portland, we saw that already back when Black Lives Matter and that whole movement. Friends, we need to look at the news. This is getting ready to happen. This could happen in 2026. An eagle came from the west, and the eagle had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram in the fury of his power. And he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. Therefore the eagle waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it, in its place, came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. Daniel 8, 5 through 8. The great horn represents the United States. Once it is broken, it ceases to become the superpower it now is. And in its place come up four notable ones. Number one, a coalition between the United States, the eagle of Daniel 7, and England, the lion of Daniel 7. Number two, beast number two, Russia, the bear. Can anybody deny that Russia is the bear? Number three, China, the leopard. You're going to see slides about China. Their airplanes are named the flying leopard. Their commandos are named the snow leopard commandos. And number four, the European community, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, Daniel 7:7. Because of the papacy, the little horn, Daniel 7:8, that controls it. This could happen in 2026. What event breaks the great horn? Daniel 8:8. A time is coming when the law of God is to be made void in our land. The rulers of our nation will, by legislative enactment, enforce the Sunday law, and national apostasy will be followed by national ruin. Review and Herald, December 18th, 1888. It is time for thee, O Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law. Psalm 119, 126. RC principles, I cannot say the words because I will be blocked. RC principles will be taken under the care and protection of the state. This national apostasy will speedily be followed by national ruin. This is not going to take long. The final movements will be very rapid. Review and Herald, June 15, 1887. Said the angel, hear, O heavens, the cry of the oppressed, and reward the oppressors double according to their deeds. This nation will yet be humbled into the dust. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, pages 258 to 59. This could happen in 2026. After breaking the two horns of the ram, the eagle waxed very great. Then the great horn was broken by its enactment of a national Sunday law. National apostasy will be followed by national ruin. The great horn is the United States. After it hits the ram and breaks the two horns, the great horn is broken. Thus it follows that the destruction of Iran precedes the national Sunday law in America, which precedes the national ruin, financial, physical, or both, of the United States. As we saw in question 3 earlier, the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes. For it is to be the great test for the people of God. This is the test that the people of God must have before they are sealed. 7 Bible Commentary 976. And the image of the beast is formed when the national Sunday law is enacted in America. Hence, the enforcement of Sunday keeping in the United States will be an enforcement of the worship of the beast and its image. Great Controversy 448.3. This could happen in 2026. We're getting closer. Notice this. The trying experiences that came to God's people in the days of Esther were not peculiar to that age alone. The Revelator, looking down the ages to the close of time, has declared, the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:7. Some who today are living on the earth will see these words fulfilled. This was written in 1915, the last book she wrote, Prophets and Kings, page 605. The decree that will finally go forth against the remnant people of God will be very similar to that issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews. Not similar, very similar. We have no idea when that decree was issued. We've never studied it. You've never heard a sermon on it. Why? Because we don't understand the times appointed. Notice, Haman the Agagite began to cast pur, that is the lot, in the first month, that is the month Nisan. In the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. Esther 3:7. Thus, Haman plotted for a total of 360 days before approaching King Ahasuerus. And those are the names in God's sacred year, but we don't study God's sacred year because all of that was nailed to the cross. Bullet number 1, 111 years ago, Mrs. White was shown that someone living then would be alive when the decree that will finally go forth against the remnant people of God would be issued. The oldest verified living person is Ethel Caterham from the United Kingdom, born August 21st, 1909, making her 160 years old as of late 2025, early 2026, recognized by Guinness World Records and Longevity Quest. That's a question I asked Google on January 3rd, 2026. Friends, we are almost out of time. This lady is 116 years old. Ellen White said some who would be alive. That was 111 years ago. This is not going for long. This could happen in 2026. This is Esther 3, 7 to 13, verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. Verse 8, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Verse 9, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. Verse 10, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman. Verse 12, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. Verse 13, and the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews. In one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. Esther 3, 7 to 13. Haman began to cast the lot in the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, until the 12th month Adar, verse 7. Probably on the first day of the 13th year of King Ahasuerus, Haman appears before the king. Then the decree was signed on Nisan 13. Nisan is the first year of the month, the first month of the year. He probably appears on the first day of the month, talks to the king, and on Nisan 13, the 13th day of the first month, the decree by Ahasuerus is signed. The decree signed on Nisan 13 was a death decree to take effect on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, 330 days later. In God's sacred calendar, there are 30 days in a biblical month and 360 days in a biblical year. So let's review this up to this moment, because this can take you a little time going through Esther 3. Haman takes an entire year casting lots, and the lot falls on a certain day. After 360 days, he goes before the king on Nisan 1, the first day of the new month, of the new year. On Nisan 13, the decree is signed, and that decree takes place 330 days later, and that was a death decree. Then Ellen White says the decree will be very similar. What did she mean by very similar? The decree could be a death decree, it could be a universal Sunday law decree, it could be a national Sunday law decree. What did she mean by that? There is a lot more to be seen when we answer questions 6 and 7. But suffice it to say that because the decree of Ahasuerus took effect 330 days later, Mrs. White cannot be referring to the death decree, since that takes place, as we will see, on the 1290th day after the daily shall be taken away in Daniel 12:11. 45 days before the promised blessing on the 1335th day, Daniel 12:12, when we hear the voice of God announcing the day and hour of the second coming. So it cannot be a death decree, because the death decree takes place just a few days, 45, 50, 60 days. We're not sure. I believe it's going to be 45 days. We're not sure. But that's when the 1290th ends, because the abomination of desolation is set up. Desolation means wipe out the population. That has to be the death decree. In my opinion, we will cover it. But the decree mentioned, very similar to that of Ahasuerus, cannot refer to a death decree. There's too much time there. It took Haman 330 days. Second bullet, the decree cannot refer to the universal Sunday law decree, since that takes place when the censer is cast into the earth in Revelation 8:5, probation closes, and trumpet one sounds in Revelation 8:7. There isn't any sense in warning us of a decree that starts after probation closes. By process of elimination, the decree that Mrs. White refers to is the National Sunday Law Decree. The decree of Ahasuerus was signed on Nisan 13, one day before Passover Day, which starts at sunset on Nisan 14. This is why 2026 is such a suspicious year, because this coming Passover feast in the spring is in the midst of the week when the work is supposed to be revived. The work cannot be revived until the church is cleansed. The National Sunday Law has to come before the United States goes into national ruin. The decree was signed on Nisan 13, one day before Passover. And she says it's very similar. Friends, we are here. I'm afraid. I could be wrong, but I can't conceive we're going to go another 7 years, 7 plus 3.5, 10.5 years for the next sabbatical. Why don't we have to go to a sabbatical? Let's look. After hearing God speak, Habakkuk prayed, "O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the year. In the midst of the year, make known. In wrath, remember mercy." Habakkuk 3:2. 2026 is very suspicious because in God's sacred calendar, the 8-day Passover feast in 2026 is the midst of the week of the 7-year sabbatical cycle, terminating at the end of the sabbatical year in 2029. The sabbatical year is also known as a year of release, Deuteronomy 31:10. The year of recompenses, Isaiah 34:8. The acceptable year of the Lord, Isaiah 61:2. The year of my redeemed, Isaiah 63:4. And the acceptable year of the Lord, Luke 4:19. Whenever we finish, whenever everything is said and done, it must, in my opinion, take place at the end. Not in the middle, not at the beginning, at the end, the Bible says, of the sabbatical year. Because the year of recompenses, Jesus comes with the judgment. He comes, the judgment has taken place, the executive judgment is still in the future after the 1,000 years. But he knows who has been saved or lost when he comes, right? The year of recompenses. The acceptable year of the Lord, Jesus applied it when he opened Isaiah's scroll and preached. The acceptable year of the Lord. The year of release, when we are released from what? From sin, from debt. And the year of my redeemed, because that's when he chooses who is going to be part of his kingdom. But can we be absolutely sure that the decree is applicable to the National Sunday Law? Yes. It happens in America. Notice, the decree which is to go forth against the people of God, this is a different quote, will be very similar to that issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews in the time of Esther. This was written in 1889, not 1915, like Prophets and Kings. By the decree enforcing the institution of the papacy, our nation will disconnect herself fully from righteousness. Then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan and that the end is near. So may this apostasy be assigned to us, that the measure of our nation's iniquity is full and that the angel of mercy is about to take her flight, never to return. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, pages 450 and 451. Friends, have you ever heard a sermon on the marvelous workings of Satan? We're going to hear it today. It's going to shock you, but it needs to be said now. I didn't realize it until just recently. Look at bullet 1. In my opinion, the marvelous working of Satan, as we shall see, has to take place just before the national Sunday law in the United States. In the midst of natural disasters of unprecedented frequency and magnitude that will continue to take place in the United States, while the battle of the ram and the eagle continues to escalate, and we continue to hear of wars and rumors of wars, in the midst of perhaps a civil war in the United States, then a great terror is soon to come upon human beings as an overwhelming surprise, which is not the personation of Christ by Satan, as I have always erroneously thought, and the national Sunday law will be enacted. That's my opinion. We will have to wait. We don't have to wait long. We will have to wait. A great terror is soon to come upon human beings as an overwhelming surprise. Letter 141, September 10th, 1902.